Hello and welcome to my Sunday chat for the 14th of February 2021. And to all of those who've got Valentines, happy Valentine's Day. Yes, the Sunday chat is my little time that I can catch up with you and bring you up to date with some of the bits and bobs that are going on and some of the things that I've done that might have some comments worthy of. Yes, so sit back and let's go through it. As ever, I've got a list of various bits and pieces to have a quick natter about. So the first item on my list here in front of me is regarding the video that I put out on Saturday before this. So my previous video, which I've dubbed as a working title, my No Talk video, which was a lovely stroll from Whiteways up on the top of Berry Hill, down Berry Hill to Houghton, and around the fields there, and then back up the other side, taking in the Monarch's Way, which is a famous long-distance walk, and the South Downs Way, equally a long-distance walk, and famous too. And the whole premise was, really, I did it for myself. So rather than have to think of something interesting or delightful to have a chit-chat about, I just thought, well, I wonder what it'd be like to just do one in which I am purely walking to and from the lens. Somebody had left a comment saying, oh, Richard, your videos these days just seem to have you walking to and from, and you don't show as much of the landscape. And I thought to myself, right, I'll show you, mate. So this is a video in which that's all I do. But it is a one-off. It was a bit of fun, bit of an experiment, and sometimes it's quite fun just to shake up what I do and surprise the viewer. And actually, it seems to have gone down pretty well, and I may do another one, I don't know, in a few months' time, something like that. I think there is stories that can be told in the landscape in a sort of non-verbal way. And there I was just an excuse, really, to show the landscape. And that's what my main thing is, heritage, landscape and nature. And you saw plenty of landscape there on a pretty cold, although sunny day. So thank you very much for that. And I hope you did enjoy it. I enjoyed putting it together and the music and just having those natural effects. But if it's not for you, don't panic. There'll be more of the usual stuff coming up soon. Also, it's been so cold recently. Now, I know people in different parts of the world get much colder temperatures, and of course it's all relative really, because it's all down to what you're used to. And we're used to getting sort of cold winters here, although it does seem to be a little bit colder than perhaps the last couple of recent times. We haven't had much snow down here, which is a bit of a shame. So when I did see a little sprinkling, a flurry of snow, it was keen to get out and do some filming in that. But unlike other parts of the UK where there was a bit more snow, of course, we've not had snow like we used to have back in the day in 1963, I think, February 63, there was, I'm told, a load of snow. I don't remember it myself. I was but a small little newborn. But I'm hoping that we will get some warmer weather so that I can get out a little bit more. It just makes it colder and more tricky, and you want to get out and do it and finish and get back and edit in the warm. So when it's cold, it can be quite tricky. But I'd rather it was cold than wet in many ways, because when it's wet, it is quite miserable getting the gear wet, you're wet, and all of that. So, it's not too bad when it's cold. You can wrap up warm. Fortunately, I haven't had too many people telling me, Richard, wear a hat, wear a hat. I get that every time. I am the bald explorer. I do wear a hat when I am really cold, but mostly I find I warm up too much from walking, so I don't need the hat. One of the things that we've had, a few people, not many, a few, but it niggles me, so I thought I'd mention it. I've often mentioned that in one of the various platforms that I'm not a great fan of the GoPro camera or the little action cameras. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with them because they have a number of favourable things for them, going for them, which I find very, very useful. They're small, so they're easy to carry. They're discreet, so you can go out and people don't immediately see what you're doing, so you can get in places. And the stabilization is brilliant. Absolutely, you can't fault it. You know, you hold it up there and all the rest of it. But the picture quality for me is just a bit naff. It's a bit, I mean, lots of people say it's okay, but it's not great in low light. I can see the grain and the not very focusedness of it. The out of focus, that might be the term I was looking for. But people often are watching on their phones, and anything looks better on your phone because of the way these days the modern phone has the screen. The screen on the modern phone and the number of pixels actually makes bad footage look reasonably good. But if you're putting it on a telly or on a big laptop, you can see where even when it's gone through Gopro's compression, it can get a bit blotchy, and I just don't like it. I don't like the colours. And I don't like the fact that there is no depth. To me, everything is very flat, like a pinhole camera, which is why, I suppose you might sort of call a cinematographer, I prefer, where possible, to use a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. These are the bigger cameras, you know, with a nice lens on it. And lenses are the things. It's not so much the camera itself, or having a bigger sensor in there, of course, is very good, but it's the lenses that you use which will determine the light and how the light is processed, the colour spectrum and all of that, and the depth of field, and that's so important to me. So I do get occasionally some people having a go and saying, oh, well, you know, the GoPro is great because it gets everything in focus. Well, I don't want everything in focus. The whole thing about filmmaking is that you direct the attention of the audience. Otherwise, you might as well just have a huge proscenium arch and say, just look where you are. The whole point is that you cut to the various bits and pieces that you want so that you take the attention. It may not be for everybody, and if it's not for you, go and watch something else. All right? That's that. Get that off my chest. You may have noticed that I've had a little bit of interest in the villages and how they have been developed recently. I made a couple of videos on that over the sort of history period, as I'm beginning to psych myself up for the History of England series, which I aim to do in about a month's time when I've got my new studio built. But in the meantime, I'm just doing a bit of research on that, and I'm not quite sure on the format of how it's going, so I'm just doing some experimental videos, some of which I'm just sharing what I have learned. I'm not a historian. I don't pretend to know everything, but if I can share what I learn, it actually helps to get it into my noggin. So on that, I've been buying, books. You know what I'm like. Somebody recommended these books, actually, the History of Britain series that came out, I think, in the 50s and 60s. These probably are grammar school books, I reckon, but brilliant. So I bought a couple of those, which takes us from early times to 1485, and then the Normans to the Black Death from 1060. Oh, it's a similar sort of thing anyway, but that's given me plenty of time span, and hopefully I should get some more as we go. Plonk them over there out of the way. I also, somebody else recommended me this one, which is actually, again, it's a sort of children's book or a children's school book looking at history. And it puts a timeline of history in very simplistic terms. But the advantage of that sort of thing is that you can quickly flick to it and go, oh, yeah, that's what happened then, and then that happened. And it looks more about not so much the events, but the things that were going on then, the type of lifestyle that people were happen. The Normans came in, and then the Saxons came in, then the Normans, and the Tudor, and they dressed like this, and they ate this, and they lived in buildings like this, and this was sort of their motif. All those sort of things that you would then go, right, okay, do a bit of research on that. So all of this I'm hoping to sort of slowly bring in, because I feel there is a bit of a war on our culture, and that our history is under question from people who want to make it more acceptable for those people who haven't been in the country for a long time. I've got to be very careful how you say this, because after all, we don't want to get cancelled, do we? But there is a culture of that. with the fields and things, I started off reading, of course, Professor Hoskins' book, W.G. Hoskins, The Making of the English Landscape. And he wrote this in the 1950s, fantastic landmark book about, well, I guess it's the early beginnings of topography, I suppose, as a serious subject. And he sort of launched a load of people interested at universities and just the popular people. He did some TV programs about it as well, I think later on in the sort of 70s. But he was... when he wrote it, it was sort of very early on in the research. And since then, of course, there's been a lot of interesting research. And I made reference to a chap called Christopher Taylor, who had made notes in the margins, if you like, with a whole load of information. He says he's trying to find the typical sort of page. So Professor Hoskins gives us what he thought. And then there are corrections or up to the latest versions of it, as you saw there in the beige books. And that's what got me started on this, which was quite fascinating. And I went and bought, it's only a slim little book, I thought it was going to be a bit bigger than this, Christopher Taylor's The Fields in the English Landscape. And I'm nearly halfway through that. Fascinating, really interesting. And I'm going to try and put that into an easy to digest few videos about how primitive man in the Neolithic times, I say primitive, they were much more organised than we think, and there were many more of them, and much of the land, this is what's so fascinating, was already cultivated before the Romans came in. Much of the country was cultivated and they were farming on a larger scale, so that the Romans themselves basically didn't have to do a great deal other than administrate and say, all right, then, well, we're going to take over this. And the Saxons pretty much did the same. There was this theory that when the Saxons came, that everything had fallen apart when the Romans left, and that everything had gone back to woodland and scrub. But that's not the case at all. Fascinating stuff. And also, I bought this in Badger Books many, many years ago, a shop in Worthing, a lovely, beautiful shop of second-hand books. And I was just fascinated. Medieval England, an aerial survey, black and white photographs with lots of detailed explanation. I think produced in the late 50s and 60s. And now just trying to find, it's typical as I record this, trying to find a great example where it shows you field systems and photographs, but it's really, really fascinating book. And actually, I've noticed that it's been quoted by a number of other sources, and I've got a stack of other books on the same sort of thing. Here's another page. Look at that. Look at that. There we are, the old field systems with the strip, the open fields and things from the medieval period and how it came about. Because if you understand the landscape, this is why I find it so interesting, if you can understand the landscape and the fields, you understand then the people who are on it. Because we have to remember that for centuries, until fairly recently, when we're now comfortable off with our supermarkets, that farming was the most important thing in the land because we had to feed ourselves. Now we don't think about it. And this is where I find it's terrible. We just assume, we toddle off to the supermarket, buy something in polystyrene or styrofoam for the Americans, a little sachet thing covered with cellophane, and we slam it in the oven. Or even worse, we have this processed food that we put into the microwave, and 2 minutes later, ping, it's ready. Ping food, as a friend of mine once used to call it. Horrible, horrible. And yet, this is why I think that farming is so important, that we go back to that mixed farming, to the organic farming where the nutrients were in it and the vitamins were in the product, and that we get rid of this intense farming, because I believe this to be true. It's a fallacy that we need these large-scale farms to feed the population. I don't believe that. Having read a number of other authors who also give evidence why that isn't the case. But let's not go into that now. That's for another video. So there we go. Running out of time on this video. Don't want to spend too long. My story, thank you very much for everybody who's enjoyed my story. They're great for when I'm can't get out because it's wet, or it's just I've got other things I need to do and I need to do a quick video. Thank you for enjoying those. It's interesting to be able to go back into my life and think, oh, what was the next section of my life? It is surprising, and I love reading the comments of people saying, oh, you had an interesting life. To me, it's just, what you do. Video workshops, they've been popping up, and I hope that that's been of use to some people. I know it's not for everybody, and I don't expect everybody to go and look at that, of course, but if you have any questions about it, do send them in to me. Richard@vobes.com is my email address, and I will try and answer them in a video as and when. They will just pop up at, spontaneously, really, if I can say that. Yes, missing the lovely Julia. A number of people have said, oh, when are we going to see the lovely Julia again? We see her in the Vobes show that I do, but out on the walks, well, we're in lockdown and it's been cold and she's got the kids stuck at home. And although we can sort of tentatively meet and I can film her from a distance and social distance, that's all allowed. But not, with the kids and her hubby working and everything, it's all a bit problematical. But we do hope that soon these restrictions will go, and that, or at least the kids can get back to school, so that Julia is a bit freer to come out and get her back on the screen, because I know she's missing it, and I know many of the members of the audience are missing it too, and it's great for me to work with somebody like the lovely Julia on the videos. Finally, you may remember we read the Sussex Peep Show last year, and I had done a couple of videos where I was going in the footsteps of Walter Wilkinson, who carried this lovely little puppet show around Sussex. He wrote a number of books. The first book, which we are now reading in my Listen with Vobes show, we're nearly halfway through, I think, and he is going around Dorset and Devon, or actually in Devon, and that's the first book where he got the puppets together, and then later on he came to Sussex with the puppet show. And we're going to make this, and I've spoken about this a number of times, a reenactment, just maybe a 10, 15, maybe a 20-minute little reenactment of the ethos of Walter Wilkinson, which should be quite fun. And we have the lovely Andrew Norris, who is an artist and a creator of wonderful things. He's got his own channel. Do check him out. Just put Andrew Norris and, if necessary, Croatia in the YouTube timeline to find out where he is. I'll try and remember to put a link to him. He has made some more puppets. We now got, I think there's 5 altogether. This is one of the characters, the parson or the curate, I think, with his little hat on. This is just the head that he's made. And we need to get the clothes. We have hands for the puppet like this and like this, so that the puppet can be operated for the video, which is fantastic. And a character that is often coming up, particularly in this book that we're reading, the first book, is John Barleycorn. And here we have a John Barleycorn. Isn't he a clever bloke, Andrew Norris? Very clever to produce these wonderful puppets. So we will be featuring those, of course, in the reenactment. We just got to get the costumes and the booth made. Somebody came forward and offered to help me make the booth. If you're watching this and it was you, do email me, richard@vobes.com. That's the easiest place for me to keep the administration for all these projects together. But anyway, that's it for now. I'm sorry to take up so much of your time. Thank you so much for watching my Sunday chat. A bit of a gabble, I know, but have a wonderful day, and I'll be out and about doing some more videos for you in the following week. So there we go. Take care, look after yourselves, and thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye for now.